Welcome to On the Pulse. I'm Vanola Mason and this is Kristen Gaynor. You may recognize us from our Achievement Chat on Twitter that we host monthly the first Wednesday of each month at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are so happy that you guys decided to join us in the chat, and we also have something new for you.
So we are excited to welcome you to our new space. We're going to use this platform here on YouTube to dialogue back and forth about current events and hot topics that are happening in the news. But before we start, we want to make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button down below. So that way you are getting notifications for whenever a new video comes up. So Vanola, you ready to dive in and get started?
Let's do it.
So the first article I want to chat about, I found this article about Major League Baseball and the Marlins, Phillies, and Yankees. And in the article, they said that 14 Marlins players actually have been tested positive for COVID.
Kristen, I just can't believe that. And you know I'm an avid sports fan. I love playing tennis. I love watching basketball. And so, you know, when sports shut down, I was devastated, like so many people in this country were. You know, and the thought of them being able to open up is like, yes, we'll finally have our sports back.
Right.
But, you know, I just don't think it's possible considering what's happened. And look what they had to do in that clubhouse. They had to do so much fumigating just to get that place sanitized and safe for players to return. You know, I just don't think that's realistic, you know, throughout a whole sports season.
And it's crazy because they are socially distanced on the baseball field. Like, baseball players are pretty far apart from one another. And I know that some clubhouses and some teams actually have their athletes spaced out amongst the suites in the stadium. So they're not even close by each other. So it's just very alarming that now they're shutting down games. And like, I really want sports to stay around, but it just kind of brings up the question then, how can we do this with schools?
Exactly. Because think about it. Schools do not have the budget that Major League Baseball has, right? And so schools don't even have the capacity to be able to, fumigate extensively every time there's a COVID case. And so it just makes us wonder and think about, like, should we really be open in schools right now?
Right. And that's, I mean, it has to be done safely too.
Exactly. So I found this article from the CDC that, you know, they're really pushing the reopening of schools in person. And, you know, they talked about the fact that, well, you know, young kids are not getting as sick as older adults. And so that should be a reason why we should go ahead and let schools open in person.
Right. And I saw in that article too, it said, based on the current data, the rate of infection is lower with younger kids if proper precautions are followed. And it just goes back to that issue of how can proper precautions be followed when schools have a very limited budget already, because we all want to be at school, all teachers, all educators, building leaders, we want to be with the kids.
Exactly. I found another article. It was from, I think this was Edutopia. And they were talking about, you know, with everything being so uncertain. So you don't know if you're going back in person, will you be online, for how long? And like, how do teachers start to plan out their year in such uncertain times?
Right. Well, one of the things I saw in that article that was actually like an aha moment for me, with being so uncertain if we are going to be in the classroom or going remote, or we might be in the classroom and then have to switch back to remote. There was a little tip in there about building a communication plan and maybe thinking outside of the box instead of just using emails to communicate to your parents and your families of your students, and using a tool like Remind, where it comes in like a text message right onto your phone. Because I know I digest information better if it's in short chunks. And maybe we should be thinking that too with parents, especially during the stressful time.
Exactly. And, you know, they also talked about the importance of building relationships with students. And I think in this time, that's going to be so important, because think about it. When school shut down in the spring, you know, you already had those relationships developed with your students. You knew them, you knew their families. But when schools open up online in the fall, you know, those relationships will pretty much be starting from scratch. And so I think it's so important for teachers to really prioritize, okay, what is it that I can do? What strategies can I use to start to make those connections, you know, to hear from my students and help them to process, you know, some of the trauma that they may have experienced being out of school so long, having a place for that, for them to be able to deal with those emotions, as well as to continue to get to know them throughout the year so that they will have a full experience this year, and they won't feel so disconnected.
Right. And to do that too, you have to constantly be reevaluating your toolbox and checking in to see what digital tools you have, what non-digital tools you have. And if it doesn't work and if it's not meeting the needs of your kids and helping you to build the relationship and to implement rigorous content, then maybe go back to the drawing board and hop on a Twitter chat like what we have coming up, which is actually very much helpful for this time because we're going to be chatting about topics like this.
Exactly. And if you are getting ready for the opening of schools and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, there's so many uncertain things, I'm not sure to where to even start with my planning, then join us on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're using the hashtag #AchieveItChat, and join in all the fun. Learn some new strategies, meet some new folks, and definitely continue to get ready for those awesome kiddos that are coming your way.
Awesome. Well, Vanilla, this was fun.
All right, see you next time.